All right, so we're gonna do the supply curve. You're gonna recognize a lot of what we just said, or what I'm gonna say, as having heard it before, because the nice thing that's so simple about supply and demand is that the logic is almost exactly the same on both sides of the market, which is convenient because a lot of the concepts that we just learned are gonna translate to the other side of the market as well. We will be getting into some wrinkles later in class about how production side of things is different from the buying side of things. We intuitively know that that's true, but for now, we're going to keep it simple. So, supply curve. Just like the demand curve represented the relationship between price and quantity demanded, supply curve represents a relationship between price and quantity supplied. How many units people want to supply at a given price. Just like on the demand side, right, this is talking about how many people would provide this at a given price. They don't necessarily have to be actively doing it. So if you'd start driving for Uber at $300 an hour, then you are in the supply side market for Uber drivers, even if you don't currently do that thing. All right, supply curve represents the relationship between, represents marginal cost or reservation price in the exact same way that the demand curve represents marginal benefit. And finally, the supply curve slopes up. So let's put these on the board. So we're going to see the same axes here. We still got quantity on the x-axis. We got price on the y-axis. If you have trouble remembering which one goes where, P's got a nice vertical line on it, goes next to the vertical line. Q, if you draw it weird, has a nice horizontal line in it, goes next to the horizontal line. All right, so it's going to look like this. Boom, supply. Often abbreviated as S. So it represents the relationship between price and quantity supply. In the exact same way as we did on the demand curve, we can do the same thing on the supply curve. I can give you a price. Let's say we're still talking about chairs. We got a price of 15. At 15 chairs, how many units are all these suppliers as a whole going to want to provide to the market at a price of 15? Let's keep with small numbers, just keep it simple. So let's say that we would want to provide 10 chairs to the market at a price of 15. If the price went up, let's say it goes up to 16, now we are going to find it worthwhile to provide that 11th chair. So it's going to show us as the price rises, how is the number of units that we want to provide going to go up as well? What is the relationship between price and quantity supply? Quantity supply. So there's sort of a story going on here, right? And the story is this. The suppliers sort of observe what the price is, decide how many units they want to sell at that price, and then do that, which might feel a little strange because I just told you that the suppliers observe what the price is and have nothing to do with deciding what the price is, which is not how things work in our typical experience. Now, what I will tell you is that we'll get into it in a minute, but the basic thing is this here. All of this is intended to describe what's called a competitive market. In a competitive market, there are so many suppliers that no individual supplier has any control over whatsoever over what's going on, right? Imagine, for example, a dry cleaners business, right? Something like that, where there's a lot of dry cleaners around, and the going rate to dry clean a shirt, $6, right? Now you come in and you're like, you know what? I don't want to charge $6. I would rather make more money. I'm going to charge $7 for my shirt, right? Now, somebody walking along the street and want to get their shirt dry cleaned, they see $7 over here, they see $6 over here, and they go into your competitor shop, right? You're not going to dry clean any shirts at $7. So yeah, you could set at your whatever price you want. You don't have to observe the price, but no one's going to buy from you, right? Because you are charging more than everybody else. And so we're talking about markets where that's the case. It's not. This is not going to apply quite as well to markets where this is not the case, where suppliers do have control over their own prices. We'll get to that after midterm 1. So to take another example, like coffee, right? People have preferences over which kind of coffee shop they go to. They're not all the same, right? So you're walking along the street, you see coffee over here is $3, coffee over here is $4, but it's your favorite kind. You know it's going to be tastier coffee. You might still go to get the $4 one. In that situation, this doesn't apply. They do have the ability to set their own prices, but we are specifically talking about the situation where they don't, right? People are buying on the basis of price. There's no such things as brands. There's no such things as like trade secrets or any of that. We're going to keep it simple, right? So you're a supplier, you have no control over your price. The price is sort of set for you by the market, and you respond to whatever that price happens to be. All right, so we observe whatever the price is. All of our suppliers say, well, if that's the price, here's how much I want to make. And then that gives us the quantity supplied when you add them all up together. And just like with the demand curve, we can go the other direction. We can say, hey, how much did it cost them to produce that 11th unit? Well, we erased our table over there, but the marginal cost, remember, is the additional cost that it takes to produce one more unit of the good. If the price was 15 and I said, you know what, I'm not going to make that 11th chair, not going to do it. What does that tell you about me? That tells you that it's going to cost me more than $15 to make this chair, right? If it only cost me $14 to make the chair, I'd go ahead and make it and sell it at a price of 15. Why wouldn't I? I'd make $1, right? So the fact that I'm not willing to do it at a price of 15 tells you that my marginal cost, the additional cost that I have to bear to make that 11th chair, must be higher than 15. But now at 16, I do make it. That tells you that somewhere between 15 and 16, we tipped the scales from a no to a yes on that chair. So my cost of production must be between 15 and 16, right? So we're mapping out what my costs are all along this curve. The cost of producing that 11th chair is $16. If it was higher, I still wouldn't make it now at 16. If it was lower, I already would have made it at 15. So at a price of 15, we'll make 10 chairs. That's the quantity supplied. And the cost of production, the marginal cost of that 10th chair is 15. Okay. So we have another example of a supply curve here, right? Same idea applies. This is shelves here, price of 60. We're going to get 2 shelves produced. And the cost of production for that second set of shelves is 60. And as the price goes up to 90, say, suddenly we're going to see 5 sets of shelves produced. Next, supply curve represents the reservation price or the marginal cost. I already talked about how it represents the marginal cost. Reservation price, again, is the worst price that you'd be willing to accept. So if your cost, let's look again here. And this also is going to apply to the demand curve. So here's our 16 point right there, right? The 11th shelf costs 16. So if my cost of production is 16 for that 11th shelf, which we know that it is, right, from looking at this curve, then what's the worst price that I would accept for that shelf? 16. If you try to pay me less than that, it doesn't cover my costs, I'm not going to do it. You pay me more than that, I'm like, great, I would have done it for 16, that would have covered my costs, but even more is even better. But the worst price that I would accept, my reservation price, is 16, which is the same as my marginal cost. So we're talking about shelving. If it takes $80 worth of materials to make the 4th unit of shelving, then you got to pay me at least $80 to do it. If I'd be willing to do it at $80, but not a penny less, that is my reservation price. Lastly, supply curve slopes up. As the price goes up, people want to make more of the thing. Now, this is going to get a little bit confusing in that, you're all business students, you're familiar with the idea of, increasing scale and things like that, and how things get cheaper as you make more of them. We're going to be in a world where that's not true, and I'll justify it. But the basic idea here is, as you make more stuff, your marginal costs go up and up and up. Now, why would I possibly say that when we know that as you make more stuff, your costs go down? Well, because there's 2 different ways your quantity can go up here. Right? One is like you move to a bigger factory, you get more efficient machines, you do all this additional stuff, and your costs go down. Right? That's one thing. That's increasing scale. We are in what's called the short run here, where we don't have the ability to shift to a new factory or whatever. This is like, imagine you're making shirts. Is that my example on the next thing? No. Imagine you're like a screen printer. You're making custom T-shirts and selling them on Teespring or something, right? So you're making 1 shirt a day. What are you doing? You're probably making it in your garage. You're making it by hand, right? You only get 1 order a day. Very simple. Okay, well, what happens if you now need to start making like 5 shirts a day? Well, you're still in your garage. It's just now you're using up more of the time in your garage, and you maybe have to hire somebody, and so that's going to increase your cost of each individual shirt. Now, at some point, you're going to be like, hey, I'm making 100 shirts a day. I better get a machine that does this for me, and your costs will go down. But until that happens, in the short run, until you have the time to make that adjustment, your costs are going up. That's the world that we're living in here when we have this upward sloping curve. It'll be another model that we talk about a little bit later that will allow us to have those increasing scale. So the simplifications I've asked you to make so far, sellers don't set their own prices. We don't have returns to scale yet.